You've been busy dissecting innocent mixing desks, I see today.
Yeah, that was good fun, that was. The left channel were just completely gone on it, but it's working 100% fine now, so
just dust.
Dust. Contact solution on all the contacts, all that kind of stuff, wiggling stuff around. Basically, it's now in great shape.
This is Sheer Isolation. It's presented by Kieran Moore in Trowbridge and Jon Ponting in Cricklade.
Hello, one and all. Welcome again. This is Sheer Isolation. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening in. Thanks for tuning in, however you are listening to us. You've got myself, John. I'm over in Cricklade. You've got Kieran over in Trowbridge. It looks like a Christmas jumper, is it?
It kind of is. I get it out once a year at Christmas. It's not any specific Christmas patterns, but it is a Christmas jumper, yeah.
I haven't got my Christmas jumper out yet, but I will do because it's about time, isn't it? I've got a lovely Christmas jumper of a T-Rex eating some reindeer.
Yes.
So.
I was literally about to say I really want a Christmas jumper with a dinosaur on it, and you've just said you've got one. So I'm bowled over. I love them.
I will go and find it when we play our first track, and I will show it to you.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to that.
Right, for people who aren't familiar with our show, we spend half hour a week just chatting about the local music scene for the west of England, playing a couple of tracks and talking to various people who have some kind of connection. And Kieran, who are we talking to this week?
This week, we're talking to Lucy O'Brien, who is an author and writer and journalist. I invited her on and she said she'd love to come talk about her book.
Lovely job. So we'll be talking to her very, very soon. And we might as well just start off by getting one track on the books. And it's my turn to pick a tune this week.
It is.
I normally look back through the archive and look back through a few years and dig something else. But I am actually going with a track that was released this year, just a few months ago, from a Bath-based songwriter called Sam Eason. Now this is kind of a lockdown track. If you have been feeling a bit low and a bit down, just stick this video on, and it just gives you all kinds of great faith in humanity. Sam himself, he's a great songwriter, really good guitarist. A few years ago, he produced an album looking at Bath folklore and wrote an entire concept album just about the history of Bath and particular characters. So yeah, he's really kind of connected to the West Country scene. And this is his new track. It's called You Are Enough.
These are hard times when you're anyone that feels a little more. You've been so scared. You're not living up to what the rest have done. Be kind to yourself, or be kind to yourself, 'cause you are enough. You are doing enough. You are trying enough. You're alive and surviving. You are so enough. You are being enough. You are giving enough. Stronger than you know. You are enough. Take some of this time to determine all that matters in your life. And I know that you'll find you already have exactly what you need. And be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself, 'cause you are enough. You are doing enough. You are trying enough. You're alive and surviving. You are so enough. You are being enough. You are giving enough. So stronger than
That track was called You Are Enough, and it is by Bath-based songwriter Sam Eason.
Are you wearing your jumper? I thought you'd gone off to get your jumper on. You're still not
I
wearing
did indeed. I went off to get my jumper, yes.
Amazing.
I've got my jumper. I'm not going to put it on because I'm quite warm and it is a very thick Christmas jumper. But
excellent.
there you go.
Oh, yes.
You see, it's got a T-Rex.
T-Rex, little arms.
Yeah, and you can see he's already decapitated one reindeer, and there's some more.
And 2 more.
Yeah.
Go to Rexy. Go on, Rexy. You can get them.
I just like it because people say, "Oh, that's a cute jumper," before they really look at the detail.
Product placement. So we've had books in the past. We've obviously had loads and loads of records and CDs. This week we have some art.
Right, you need to describe that for the radio people. But it's a lot of primary colours in kind of swirly blobs.
Yeah, it is. It's I don't know what it is actually. I think it's like oils, possibly oils, and they all kind of like twist into each other. It's very, very pretty and nice. But it was made by Jed Elliott's mum, Nicola Elliott, who is an artist based in Devizes. And as people may or may not know, Jed Elliott is the bassist in UK rock band The Struts. His mum still lives in Devizes, still lives local, and she makes art. And we share a birthday. And this year I turned 37, and she brought me round that piece of art for my new house to say thank you. And isn't that lovely? But it's a lovely piece of art. It has a musical link, so I thought I'd share it.
Right, it's time for us to introduce our guest. So this week we are speaking to Lucy O'Brien. Kieran, I don't know Lucy personally, so you're probably the better person to explain who she is and what she does.
And she's got a new book out, actually got an old book out, it's been republished, and she's here to talk about her book, which is called She Bop, released in 1995. It reflected on women in the music industry, and she's updated it for 2020, so 25 years later, to reflect on how things have changed.
I first published She Bop in 1995, and then it was the height of Britpop. It was also when Riot Girl the Riot Girl movement had been really popular for a couple of years, and there was a lot of interest in women's music, women's history. I had always interviewed female artists whenever I could, ever since I joined NME in the mid-'80s. And I felt that female artists didn't get the recognition they deserved. They needed more space in the music press. They needed their work to be remembered, to be taken seriously. I got the contract with Penguin Books to write a history because, believe it or not, even at that point, there wasn't a history of women in popular music.
That's actually quite an indictment, really, isn't it? The fact it took until 1995 for someone to go, hang on a minute.
Yes. I mean, while I was researching the book, in America, Gillian Garr published She's a Rebel. So she published that just before I did mine, but hers was focused mainly on American rock and roll and R&B. Whereas with She Bop, I really kind of broadened my scope. So I was looking at all different music genres, everything from kind of punk to soul music to what was then called world music, which we'd now call kind of global beats, really. So it was very broad in scope, and it was maybe more conceptual in terms of the questions that I was asking. Asking key questions like, why is there no big female stadium rock band? Why do women always have to negotiate that image question?
Yeah.
So it was like each chapter was built around a central question, partly because I didn't just want to do a normal chronology. I wanted to look at things in terms of themes as well, and look at in detail at the sorts of obstacles that women had to overcome to be recognised. So when it comes, She Bop has this interesting life in that, and I call her She because she keeps changing, and every few years I need to update her. So this is the 4th edition.
Oh, okay.
And it's the Silver Jubilee edition, so 25
Of course, 25 years.
So I thought it'd be nice to have a little celebration and my good friend Gina Birch from the Raincoats did artwork for this
Oh,
new
cool.
edition. We had a new cover specially designed, and so it's a real collector's edition. And then I did this extra chapter and a new introduction.
I hadn't realised that you had actually written those books previously, because I hadn't looked into your personal past. But I picked up the Skin autobiography that you co-wrote, and it just blew my mind. I read that and I was like, crikey, I know Lucy. Oh my God, all this history. I hadn't realised all this stuff you'd done. I mean, obviously I do the obligatory look up your Wikipedia. You actually got fired from the NME for being too much of a rebel. How the hell? What the hell?
I love that. That's the first time someone said you got fired. I suppose I did. It's funny, looking back on it now. Yeah, I mean, we were the refuseniks as well. I mean, it was really quite a high octane moment there at NME in the late 80s. There was a group of us who felt that youth culture wasn't just about music, that it was also about politics, it was about art, it was about literature. And all these things kind of fed into each other. And I think NME had always been, in its own way, a counterculture magazine. And it still was existing as that right up into the late 80s. And then questions were asked on high, like, why are they featuring politics? Why are they interviewing members of the of Sinn Féin? And why have they got, the Labour leader on the cover the week of the general election? I mean, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, they put Jeremy Corbyn on the cover, not so long ago, and that was okay. But in the 80s, we're looking at Margaret Thatcher was in the ascendant at that time. So it was a very politicised environment in quite a particular way. The management really didn't like what they called a cabal of left-wing writers. So they kind of engineered a few sackings and and they made it clear to the rest of us that,
toe the line.
You're welcome. Either you just write about music and take all the politics out of it, or, you're not welcome.
Do you think that being a woman, that you had similar barriers to yourself as a writer, that the musicians were having themselves as creative people?
Yeah, in a way, yes. Because when I first started writing for NME I think my very first review was published in 1983. And it wasn't until, it took me about 2 years to kind of really, people had this phrase, break NME, as in, you like break America, or, it was like this insurmountable goal. And it was kind of an insurmountable goal for lots of people. And it felt intimidating, particularly for women, because I think there was the sort of general view that women didn't really know about music and couldn't write about it, and didn't really have much taste. It's so interesting, this whole idea of musical taste, isn't it? It's very contested, and I've noticed that maybe men and women consume music slightly differently. With men, it's a bit like football and supporting teams.
It so absolutely is.
The rigor and the kind of fierce arguments about who you support and how you support and why you do. Whereas I think with women, there's a little bit more, well, I just really like that.
Do you know a musician called Annie Gardner, who is the front woman of a band called Hysterical Injury?
I don't, but that sounds amazing.
She did an art installation for an art gallery, I think in Bath and Bristol, where she took NMEs and she piled them up in arrangements of gender. And visually, it's amazing to look at, because it's exactly how you'd expect. The man pile was like this big.
The man pile.
The man pile. And the girl pile was this big. And then like joint pages is like this big. Those sorts of conversations. There you go. Thank you, John.
Oh, so in terms of the man pile, is it the covers?
That's the covers. They're cover stars, yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow.
And so I grew up, for me, as a teenager, I never questioned that. you don't question that until somebody says, hang on a minute, have you thought about this? And then I go, actually, yeah. Oh my God. And the work that you've done, though not directly aimed at me, certainly has had an influence on the things that I then gone on to think and feel and been interested in, including things like feminism, etc.
Right.
It really helped with that back in the day as well, because I hadn't seen that until she pointed it out. It's like, blow my mind.
I mean, it's very interesting. You know, when I came to update She Bop and do the final chapter, which I call Future Feminism, it did strike me that, you know, there was what I would say is the old industry and the new industry, and that, you know, shot of the large pile of male NMEs, I kind of see that as more old industry, and that hopefully, and I'm ever the optimist, that we're moving towards a new industry, which if it was to be visually represented, there is this organisation called Key Change, so that going for 50-50 gender balance across festivals and other music industry events, and why not the music press as well, by 2022. I think that's quite ambitious.
That is quite ambitious, but I love the fact that someone's trying.
Exactly. And wouldn't it be great to, you know, I mean, maybe 2022 is a bit soon, but, you know, maybe in 5 years' time, we could see another picture of the NMEs or the equivalent, and it would be equal.
Even. We're getting to the point where people are asking questions about people of colour as well, and saying, actually, that's another area that gets completely neglected.
Yes.
Until I read Skin's autobiography, it never even occurred to me that a person of colour had never headlined Reading or Glastonbury.
Yes.
My God. Again, it's another of those oh my God moments, because you just assume that they would have at some point.
I was talking about this with Skin, and we were saying, well, do you know what? I mean, in the music industry, in the workplace, if you're overtly racist, you would lose your job. So racism is actually often covert, in the same way that bullying is covert quite a lot of the time. And sometimes it's hard to pin it down and say, this is what it is. So that's where this term microaggressions comes in, doesn't it?
Yes, microaggressions.
So Skin says it's not that they would necessarily be overtly so, but they just wouldn't put you on a radio playlist, or they wouldn't promote your record in the same way, they wouldn't prioritise it in the same way, even if you're selling more records than, you know, the next artist. So there's lots of sort of subtle ways that you're kind of shunted to the back of the queue, or overlooked, or, you know, when it comes to the award shows, for instance, you know, there'd be lesser bands who'd get more awards. You know, it's that,
yeah, that sort of thing.
That kind of know your place.
Yeah. Which makes Skunk Anansie even more kick-ass, because they did it on their own terms. I mean, it's just an amazing story.
Yes, exactly. That's what they did, and they knew that what they had was their live show, which is unassailable. You know, you'd see their live show, and you could not be not moved.
Tell us quickly more about this book. Has it been published yet? Is it out? Is it in shop?
Yes, it's just been published, and one thing that's really tickled me is I've had lots of requests for signing of fathers wanting to buy it for their daughters. So I think that's quite an interesting little development, isn't it?
Yes.
I thought, well, I'll just quietly update it and sort of put it out. But there's been loads of interest, and I think
that's
partly
great.
Because of the wish for and people's questions about diversity, and like, come on, you know, this music industry is a workplace like any other that needs updating, that needs to be inclusive, and you know, it just seems a lot of those practices like Leeds and Reading festival bookers saying, well, we just book all these male acts because that's what the punters want, and you think, well, not so sure now.
No. Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's quite a lot of bands that could quite easily fit onto those bills.
Yes, exactly.
So Lisa, we asked you to pick a track, and you have gone with Black Box Recorder, Facts of Life. Why have you chosen that track?
I love Sarah Nixie's voice, and I think she's so funny and so subtle and mischievous. She's all those things, and she's just a lovely person.
develop curiosity and start to fantasize about the things they've never thought of doing before. These dreams are no more harmful than the usual thoughts the boys have of becoming football stars or millionaires. As long as the distinction between fantasy and fiction remains, it's just a nature walk. It's just the facts of life. There's no master plan. Walk me home from school. I'll let you hold my hand. You're getting ideas, and when you sleep at night, they develop into sweet dreams. It's just the facts of life. A boy sits by the telephone, wanting to call a girl, but not daring to because she might say no. At last he summons up the courage, phones her and discovers someone else has asked her first and she said yes. Now's the time to deal with the fear of being rejected. No one gets through life without being hurt. At this point, the boy who's listening to this song is probably saying that it's easier said than done, and it's true. It's just the facts of life. There's no master plan. Walk me home from school. I'll let you hold my hand. You're getting ideas, sweet dreams, and when you sleep at night, they develop into sweet dreams. It's just the facts of experimentation, familiarization. It's all a nature walk. It's just the facts of life. Sweet dreams, there's no master plan. Ideas, walk me home from school. Sweet dreams, I'll let you hold my hand. You're getting ideas, sweet dreams, and when you sleep at night, they develop into sweet dreams.
Right, we have just played Black Box Recorder, Facts of Life, and we have just been speaking to Lucy O'Brien, an amazing, amazing guest. Thank you for arranging the booker in there, Kieran. That was incredible to listen to.
I mean, we've only scratched the surface there, mate. There is so much going on.
From NME to working with Skin to going through all that She Bop and like the 25th anniversary of her book, and it's kind of like a rolling directory, isn't it, rather than a book? If she's updating,
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Incredible.
that's going to get many more reprints without a shadow of a doubt.
She Bop, Lucy O'Brien. I'm sure it's available in your favourite
There's
bookstore.
Waterstones, or try your local bookshop like Devises Books because she's great. But John, for people who don't know, we record or film these on Wednesdays, don't we?
Usually, if we can, yes, Wednesday or Thursday, yeah.
Yeah, and we always round it up and say, any news? And last week I said, no sort of big significant news. And then we put the show to bed. Thursday night, the following day, I get an email from Chris TT. He says, by the way, Kieran, just to let you know, I'm whacking out the live recording you sent me on Bandcamp fee-free Friday. And we're going to take all the money that's raised from this live recording to pay what you want. All the money raised goes to MVT, the Music Venue Trust. So, Chris, that's brilliant news. Thank you so much. I very hastily wrote a press release, very short email, sent it out to a bunch of people, various local outlets, to say this is being done, it's been released, it's part of Trowbridge, we're really proud, support it if you can. And then come Friday, it must have been yesterday, I think I saw it, or the day before, he'd raised £600, they'd gone straight to MVT, and we were incredibly happy that he was able to do this based on a live recording we made in Trowbridge at the Town Hall. Happened to be his last ever UK tour, and we did our show in April, and I think he quit and finished in November. So it was literally that last 6 months of his touring career we got this live recording, and I'm very proud of it.
Was that the gig where he played in the lobby of the Town Hall and the audience was sat up the stairs?
Yes, and he played on the grand piano.
Yeah.
I think you were there, weren't you?
It was a lovely atmosphere, yeah.
A lovely atmosphere, it really was. It's one of the it was a really special show. It really, really was. Not just because it turned out to be his last tour, but we've not done a huge amount of shows in the town hall. We've done, I don't know, 20, 30. So it's not like loads and loads and loads, but were all really significant. They all sold and were really well attended. And that was no exception. But like you say, really special, just slightly higgledy-piggledy, all sat on cushions. It was just like someone playing your living room, but it's not your living room. It's a room full of strangers.
I've got 3 questions for you from that, Kieran, so answer them quickly. First off, who is Chris TT, for people who don't know who he is? What is the Music Venues Trust? I know we talk about it a lot. And what is my third question? How can people donate, or can people still donate to this?
So Chris TT is a Brighton-based folk singer-songwriter. He is quite political. He's been a writer, a broadcaster, a journalist. He's done all sorts of career. The Music Venue Trust are a government-level lobbying organisation that represents UK venues, British venues, grassroots music venues, and they do great work looking after all the ins and outs regarding the Music Venue Trust. And then lastly, if you want to check it out, just go to christt.bandcamp.com or just search Chris TT, that's Chris-T-T. You type it in online in any form of social media, you get the cry emoji, because that is shorthand is T-T. So you often get Chris cry emoji. But yes, Bandcamp it, and you will find it. And it's pay what you want. You don't even have to pay for it if you don't want to. You just go and listen to it. It is an amazing set.
Kieran, that is absolutely it for this show. Thank you for... why are you doing that? It's odd.
It's the end of the year, John. And celebrating.
I was going to say, yeah, this is our final kind of virtually live podcast of the year. We're going to cross over. For our radio listeners, we've got some compilation shows lined up. For YouTube and streamers, we're just going to have a couple of weeks off and we'll be back in the new year. So, Kieran, it's been fantastic this year to have a chat to you.
I've loved it. Thank you ever so much, John.
And to speak to all these people that we have been speaking to. Don't forget, peoples, you can find all of our previous shows on YouTube. Any track we've ever played, there is a YouTube playlist, which is an amazing collection of... it's getting on to nearly 100 tracks from nearly 100 artists, which is impressive, to say the least. We've got an interesting few months ahead of us now that we've got the vaccine rollout, and now that people are starting to talk about booking themselves in for gigs. It's going to be... we've got plenty of material to keep us going for a while.
Yeah, we have. The big thing next year is going to be this duality, this live stream and live show at the same time. So that's going to be the big thing next year. That's going to be the big talking point. So I am dead excited to get stuck in and find out what it's all about.
Okay, so we will wish everybody on YouTube Merry festivities, whatever you end up doing.
Happy Christmas, guys.
And for the radio guys, we'll be back next week with some best bits. So and until I see you next time, Kieran. Toodles.
Toodles. Bye.
Bye-bye. Right, see you later, bird. Right.
That is literally it. We're done.
That is it. That is a wrap.
Rock and fucking roll.